10.
And our third series of the day rolls on. LGD Gaming versus Mouz Sports. Game 1 in the books, but yeah, probably not on the page most people assumed it would be, as Mouz Sports managing to notch only their second win of the preliminaries against the team heavily favored, not just against them, but coming into the prelims, heavily favored to go very deep into this field. Just hasn't materialized, have not seen that in their group stage play so far. Mouz Sports, again, playing for nothing but pride, and yeah, they wound up pretty proud at the end of last game, and they damn well should be. So LGD at this point, their group stage record has fallen to 4-5. If they want to have any possible shot at really making it out of the group stages with a top seed or a high seed, or even, hell, at this point, a winner's bracket seed alone, they need a win. Dropping 2 and falling to 4-6 is going to make it so hard, as they're already on the bubble and were on the bubble at 4-4 before coming into this series. So if you're just tuning in for the first time, welcome in. If you've been here with us all day, damn fine to have you. Hope you're enjoying the show so far, and of course, we're just about at the halfway point of the day, still a lot more Dota to be played. Can't wait to see the rest of the matches on the docket as well. I'm your host, Aaron AC Chambers, joined by Draskell for his insight and analysis as always, and really what it came down to, man, you know, Mouz Sports came out firing, they got a lead, then both of us started to get a little trepidatious about their chances to close that game out. LGD able to fight their way back in, able to take a Roshan, able to stabilize the map, able to get some items of their own. Looking like a team that was going to be tough to crack, but Mouz Sports turning one big fight around and then following it up with a rout at their Tier 3, just flat out grabbed that game and stole it.
It just goes to show what happens when you let a game go on for a long enough time, because even like 30, 35 minutes into the game, heroes are going to have a lot of items, which means their damage output is going to be high, and they already didn't really have any towers left mid anyway.
Right.
So when you lose a fight like that, even though they weren't super close to the base, it was close enough to the point where they could just walk right in, start applying pressure to the Tier 3, and then they made a gigantic mistake by letting Mouz re-engage with the puck blink in with the Infest, and then of course the Biffed Roar by Zhao 8, and they ended up losing Siler again. So stuff like that can very quickly end the game, especially against a team with a Lone Druid. I mean, that hero is very good at killing the base. So I think LGD have learned their lesson. They're going to ban out the Lifestealer at least. And the first pickup was an Alchemist, no real surprise there coming out of LGD. And the answer coming out from Mouz Sports is going to be Weaver and Visage. So Black gets his hero, or I guess technically Quakefa could be playing that as well. And Visage, obviously, a ridiculously strong support.
The vast majority of the time, Weaver really is, whenever I see Mouz Sports play him, Weaver's played by Black. It's a hero that I've actually talked to Black quite a bit about, and he just loves the hero. He loves the fact that it's a hero that he can't just sit and farm like hell and then just be a monster in a late game like Black is known to do. But he also likes the change of pace and being able to be aggressive. And it's easy to forget, as much as you focus on Black, you know, he's known and built this reputation as just one of the most efficient, the burning of the West, and so on and so forth. But he was known as a Clinks player at one point. Like, he knows how to play those heroes extremely effectively and really knows how to put pressure on. And he's often underestimated in how much he can contribute in that sense, as opposed to just living up to his moniker, Mr. GPM. But LGD with the Alchemist and the Bane pickups. Bane, obviously, a nice answer to Weaver. Also, the Lifestealer not going to be joining us this time. It seems like it's very rare these days that we don't see a Lifestealer in the game. OD banned out by LGD, and we'll see if they care enough about the tree. Mouz Sports, a team that will run a tree Weaver at you.
5 seconds remaining.
Yeah, it most certainly will, and they've already banned out the Batrider too, so it would actually be slightly better than normal, because it's another hero who we've either seen ban or picked, I think, every single game still. I'm not exactly sure on the stats, but the first day, it was every single game.
Yep.
Like 100% pick or ban, which is pretty insane, actually. But yeah, Mouz, now they're going to take out a couple more heroes here. Not sure what their exact game plan is going to be just yet, because even though Visage is typically seen as more of an aggressive hero, especially in Tri versus Tri lanes, because Soul Assumption is so good, the more heroes that are taking damage around you, we're not positive on what their lanes are going to be. And LGD, you can kind of say the same thing. A Bane Alchemist lane is a definite possibility. Start of a Tri lane could be just a mid Alchemist, and a lot of ambiguity, I think, in LGD's picks, maybe even more so than Mouz, because like you said, Black does play Weaver often, and I'm sure all of these teams have done homework against each other, so I'm sure LGD knows that. But it looks like it's just going to be a Razor ban out coming from Mouz. It's so funny how that hero went from like never being picked at all ever to pick ban almost every game in like a week.
Yeah, I mean, the hero's seeing a hell of a lot of play, a lot more lately, and it's really just reactionary. It's one of those things, you know, like, I hate to use the word metagame, but it's like the idea that the heroes that are becoming more and more popular, that many teams are building as their core heroes or building lineups around, are generally heroes who want to BKB. Alchemist, Weaver, Weaver to a lesser extent, but mostly heroes like Alchemist, DK, Lifestealer, etc. Razor excels against those heroes. Lone Druid, a hero that fell off, but when he does get picked, Razor's a fantastic answer to that. So it's easy to see why is working his way back into popularity. Now, one thing Mouz Sports does like to do that I've seen them do a number of times whenever they get a Weaver pick like this is they'll try to get Koikva a Nature's Prophet. And what they want to do, if they can, especially if they can get the tree to go with it, they basically just focus on doing nothing but split pushing and applying pressure to surgically dismantle a team's game plan. It's very difficult to do, but Mouz Sports often feels confident in doing it. The weakness in that kind of a lineup, if they decide to go in that direction, is that if it falls flat, if you end up failing for the first 10 minutes that you're moving out of the laning phase, you know, say between 15 and 25 minutes, it's an absolute key time of the game where if you start losing team fights, then you wind up just without anything in your inventory because you're so focused on not necessarily farming for pure GPM, but trying to accomplish secondary and tertiary goals across the map. And LGD Gaming with the Bane and the Alchemist, they already have the beginning of a nice five-man strategy if they want to go in that direction and build around it. I mean, Alchemist is one of those heroes that can fit into that in a number of ways, and Bane naturally just helps deal with a lot of things in a five-man because his entire skill set allows him to account for multiple heroes at once in different ways. So right now, both teams very much going to be aware of the way things are setting up, and I'm really interested to see what direction Mouz Sports goes here.
Yeah, me too. I mean, there's two ways to think about it if you're Mouz right now. You can go for the aggressive style because unlike a lot of heroes, especially carries, Weaver has the capability of fighting very early. He can Shikuchi spam, you could put points into obviously Max Geminate, and even 1 point into Swarm is very devastating because it's a massive amount of minus armor, basically. And against a team like LGD, who has an Alchemist, and Alchemist starting armor, I believe, is 2, which is not really that impressive. It's very easy to just force the issue, and Rubik is going to be picked up here by Mouz as well. It's a very versatile hero, and still nothing really spectacular to steal outside of the Fiend's Grip. The Fiend's Grip is something that we always mention when we see this matchup and how easy it is to actually take because any channeled spell, things like Black Hole, Fiend's Grip especially, quite easy to take. And actually for one of the first times that you and I have gotten to see, at least so far in these preliminaries, we're going to get a chance to see a Magnus. I think we've seen it one other time.
Yep.
Yeah. And I don't think that team actually won.
Nope. They sure didn't. It was a mag that basically, if I'm not mistaken, it was one of those situations. I'll tell you, I was actually going to point that out. What surprises me. Picking a mag, that's fine. You don't see it that often anymore, but they picked that into a Rubik. And in fact, the team we saw lose, which if I'm not mistaken was actually LGD, if I want to throw that out. I'm almost positive it was actually. They picked it against a Rubik, and then every RP he threw was stolen by Rubik and used against his team and caught more heroes being used against them than he caught with the original one. Mouz Sports now grabbing the Beastmaster up, so they're going to have another hero for Feta. That is a hero generally played by Feta, so we'll probably see that Beastmaster go mid. Excellent counter initiation, and this kind of fits in. I'm still waiting to see Koikva's hero. If they don't ban it, I think there's a high probability it's a Nature's Prophet.
It could be. I mean, there again, Darkseer is actually still available too, which is kind of crazy. You don't really see that too often, at least in this phase in the game. But we are going to see the Nature's Prophet pick up here. It's going to be by LGD, and they didn't have an offlaner either. I'm a bit shocked that they didn't themselves want to go for a Darkseer. I mean, you already have a Mag, and you already have an Alchemist, and we talked about the synergy between the Unstable Concoction and Vacuum and how good that can actually be.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and you can just Vacuum into an RP too, and then Concoction, which would have been a massive combo. But the thing about that kind of a pick is that it kind of pigeonholes you into one style of play, whereas the Nature's Prophet lets you do split push. It also lets you kind of open up the map a little bit more for your team. So just a different style that LGD is approaching here. I don't think it's a bad idea by any stretch. I just think that it would have been cool to see 3 purple heroes in the same team. But yeah, LGD, they're going to take out the Lone Druid, and that's obviously a hero that had pretty good success, I would say, last game when Koikva played it. So we'll see if they want to pick up the Darkseer or what the offlane choice is going to be here.
Hard to believe that we get down to this and they need an offlaner. You say, I wonder if they'll pick up a Darkseer with their last pick. You just don't really hear that anymore. I mean, Darkseer fits into any lineup, but again, when I look at this Mouz Sports lineup with the Visage, the Beastmaster in particular, it seems like a lineup that, I mean, I really like what LGD did in drafting the Magnus, though. I mean, by the time they got to the Mag, just having seen the Weaver, and as we talked about, if they do their homework, there is a particular way that Mouz likes to run Weaver. Doesn't mean it couldn't be Koikva and then they pick an anti-mage or something now. Like, that could honestly happen. It wouldn't surprise me all that much because they are known to throw curveballs like that. Yep, they're going to grab the Tinker. Okay, Tinker's actually a really interesting pickup because it adds to that split push I was talking about before. Koikva actually plays a sick good Tinker. Like, he is so good at it. You just don't see it all that much.
Yeah, he does play a phenomenal Tinker, actually, so I'm glad to see him able to get his hands on that. And it's also a direct answer to the split push that Nature's Prophet was going to bring, so I think it's pretty much the best choice that Mouz had here. I think Darkseer would have been okay, but it wouldn't have been as good, because then they wouldn't have really had anybody with that kind of mobility to deal with that Nature's Prophet. So LGD, they're looking for one more right now. They have the Mag, they have the Bane, and of course they needed another support, and it's going to be a Jakiro. And I think Jakiro is a hero that I don't think we've seen enough of, honestly. I think a lot of people, when they see Jakiro, they think it has to be with the Darkseer, otherwise it's not really worth it. But the thing about Jakiro is his stat gain as support is still absurd. His damage combo is still very high in Ice Path, even at max rank is still a 2.5, or well, not 2.5, but more like 2.25 second stun. So he's still very, very potent, and you partner that with Unstable Concoction and a Bane, it's very high kill potential in that tri-lane that LGD has.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you, by the way. There were teams who were experimenting. You can't call it experimenting. They were just using Jakiro very frequently. Dignitas among them. And they kind of got away from that lately, which is really kind of surprising to me. But Jakiro is one of those heroes, any AoE team you can imagine. And it doesn't have to be Magnus AoE. You know, it doesn't have to be that kind of AoE. Just any team that's predicated on trying to capitalize on the enemy grouping up. Jakiro is going to work in that situation because not only does he punish them for it with Ice Path, not only does he have damage that he can lay down with the Macro Pyre, but Dual Breath is actually an amazing ability that, you know, whenever people think of Jakiro, or most viewers, not just viewers but players, it's the Ice Path because, you know, just how strong and how amazing of a disable that happens to be. But in terms of just being able to finish off a fight, that's probably the way to put it. Jakiro just has one of the best abilities in that. It has a slow associated, it has damage associated with it, and it makes it so easy if you do get the jump on the enemy to not just hold them in place, but to make it so when they retreat, they're retreating. It's like a route situation. They're retreating, but you're going to be able to ride them down. And he has a lot of flexibility in the way he can play as well. He deals extremely well with the offensive tri-lane pressure. You can run him in an offensive tri-lane if you want to do so. And they are going to be dealing with the pressure, and it will be Black on the Weaver as mentioned. So as we get started, I'm going to go ahead and run through, see who's handling who. Synderen on Rubik, no surprise there. Koikva, as anticipated, will be over on the Tinker. Beastmaster handled in mid by Fate Top. Visage going to be played by Pos with Weaver, as mentioned, by Black on the other side of the river. We got Zhao 8 playing on the Nature's Prophet. DDC going to be handling, or excuse me, DD going to be handling our Jakiro. DDC on the Bane. Yao will be taking the Magnus mid up against Phaeton. This should be a lane that both of these heroes come out of quite happy with. And Sylar, no surprise, farming up the Alchemist.
Well, this top lane is going to be clearly where the majority of the action is going to be starting. The thing is, the tri-lane versus the tri-lane, the one thing that they really need to make sure is if they're going to be going for kills, DD needs to put a sentry in the lane, because the only person they can reliably go for here is either Synderen or Black. So those two heroes, like Black even has less HP than the Rubik. He's only got 492, but actually they're just going to go on DD.
There's going to be a Telekinesis and a Nightmare to bail him out. Unstable Concoction will be there to follow it up. They're just going to treat it as free damage, excuse me. The Visage doing good damage with Soul Assumption. There's a lot of trading of the paint, but neither team really willing to commit to that fight, which I don't think is much of a surprise. Elsewhere, we can see Zhao 8 going up against Koikva. Koikva, 1 point into March of the Machines. We'll see what build he wants to go with. Koikva's, of all the players that I see play Tinker in the West, Koikva is one of the few that will fairly frequently, yep, hang on, never mind, tossed him away, not towards him. Thought he was going to toss him towards him. He is one of the few Tinker players in the West that I see once in a while, you know, break away from maxing March of the Machines and go with the pure spam build, go with the pure max laser, max rockets build, depending on their goals. Black has the Nightmare removed. Pos is in trouble here. Now there's going to be a Telekinesis. That's going to throw him back, stunned everyone, but First Blood goes the way of Sylar. Sylar drawing First Blood over Pos, or on Pos. And yeah, that's not what you want if you were Mouz. And you know, I mean, Black, I'm a little curious as to why he removed the Nightmare from Black. I think Black had a chance to get away there.
Well, the thing is, if they had put the sentry down, Black would have died for sure. Visage has 600 HP, whereas the Weaver has like 100 less, so they would have for sure killed Black. The thing about Unstable Concoction is it still hits you and stuns you even if you Shikuchi, so the distance would have been closed by the rest of the supports of LGD, and they probably would have gotten the kill no matter what. So it was definitely worth it for Paz to take the sleep, and Black tried to take it back while he was farther away to make sure that he didn't get stunned closer, but it really didn't matter. So really good start for LGD. And the bottom lane as well is pretty darn even closer than I thought it would be, but Quakefa, of course, going for the laser and March build with 0 points and a rocket, just to prevent Zhao 8's Treants from being able to harass him. I think it's a really good call. And then, of course, mid is 2 melee, but oh wow, Fata getting skewered in.
Fata skewered in, and now we're going to have the TPN from Zhao 8. Shockwave, Sprout, and a couple of right clicks. That'll be another death on the board. That one going to LGD as well. Make it 2-0, and wow, Bane at top actually manages to kill off Rubik. So LGD coming up all aces in the first 3 minutes, notching a kill a minute.
I feel so bad for Pato right there because he didn't have any tangos left. He probably would have lived if the Nature's Prophet didn't teleport, but he actually wasted his salve for the last auto attack, just hoping that maybe he would get a stout shield, I guess, or something, and maybe live through it, but not going to be the case. So 2 lanes so far going very, very well for LGD. Even though this tri-lane is aggressive, it's supposed to be stopping the Alchemist from getting farm, he's still pretty much dead even with Black right now on the Weaver. And as time goes on, I think Mouz's tri-lane will eventually become even weaker, just because the burst damage coming out from LGD's tri-lane is going to get higher and higher at a very rapid rate, especially the more points that Sylar gets into his concoction. And DDC now level 3, so he has level 2 of the Brain Sap. They can instantly kill a hero of Mouz's tri-lane.
Mouz continuing to poke around, doing a little counter warding now, and blocking the camp. It's actually one of the one of the more creative places you can block that camp with. I won't say creative, just it can be tough to sniff out if you're not aware of it. But Sylar continuing to try to find his farm. He's sitting at 17 CS, not the best in the world. He's right on par with Weaver, who follows him by about 3. Tinker doing quite well in his lane. He's got 26 up against the 18 of the Nature's Prophet. And they're in mid. Basically a break even, except for the fact that obviously LGD getting the kill on Phaetha. And level 6, yeah, about a full level ahead now for the Magnus, which is certainly good for him. The quicker he can get up the 2 key items he needs, the Arc Boots, and the hang on. Nightmare on the Synderen. It's removed by someone behind him. They're going to go ahead and spin the Unstable Concoction. Black. Hang on. No, they're actually going to be able to pull him back, and the Brain Sap actually made possible by Synderen pulling him back. He wouldn't have been able to do it if he hadn't pulled him back. So the Brain Sap onto Black notches another kill. Really weird engagement there. Looked like neither team wanted a part of it, but people were just throwing spells and stuff happened and somebody died that just happened to be on the side of Mouz.
Yeah, that was a really unfortunate timing for Black to come out of Shikuchi because Zhao 8's ultimate hit him right as he came out, and Weaver, not known for his massive base HP, and he just got totally destroyed there. So that's what I was talking about in terms of the burst potential of LGD's tri-lane, and of course that was supplemented a bit by Zhao 8, but even without it, if they focus him that hard, there's no way they're going to be able to stop him from getting a kill. So LGD continue to stay ahead here. It's not a massive lead, but still, I mean, 2,000 experience and gold in 6 minutes is pretty respectable.
And we can see a little pre-runing being done. But this mid matchup, again, continuing to be mostly a wash. And I'm curious to see how Mouz is going to decide to work this out. We see a rotation out of Paz and Synderen. Don't know if this is a flat-out gank attempt or if it's just a rotation. Neither of them have smoke, so they may just show up and go for it since it is nighttime. If they can catch Yao hanging back, actually just going to donate a salve to poor Phaetza, who, as you had mentioned, had spent his in a moment of desperation trying to get away from that death in mid. But now we're going to see Sylar, who, by the way, has been maxing Concoction and Grievel's Greed, has not put a point in Acid Spray, so he's going to be very happy to start finding some free farm.
Yeah, he doesn't need a spray here because he knows that he has enough damage on his own. And they've actually abandoned Black here. Paz is kind of sitting mid, whereas Synderen is trying to look for something to do. Maybe creep stack for the Ancient, or maybe they want to do it inside of the woods to make it a little bit safer. The thing about stacking Ancients for a Tinker who's going March is it's really common, and LGD would maybe even try to contest it. And if they do, I don't think that Mouz could potentially fight that. So Right now, Mouz have kind of fallen into a backup plan that is not ideal for them, and they could potentially just collapse on top with their Nature's Prophet and push this tier 1.
It's exactly what they're going to do. Zhao 8 teleporting in, ready to push, ready to try and force a fight. Obviously,
Radiant's
Black
top tower is under attack.
not going to be able to do anything about it. Poss will... looks like he was thinking about it. Oh, he's going to hang.
Radiant structures
They do
are
decide to use the
fortified.
glyph.
Radiant's
Quite a
top
healthy
tower
creep
is
wave,
under
though.
attack.
So they should be able to bring this down in short order. Yeah, we actually see the Treant pulling the Radiant creep wave, and that tower will end up dead without contention. And no rotation
Radiant's
either.
top tower
And
has
this is when
fallen.
you can tell a team is really just out of sorts. Whenever something like that happens, and they're not even trying to take another goal elsewhere. Like, the best they could do, I guess, at bottom would be to try to take the tier 1 or at least pressure. That's what they're doing. And with Koikva having 4 points in the March of the
Dire's
Machines,
bottom tower
they'll have a
is
chance to
under
put on a
attack.
little bit of pressure, but for the most part, LGD just taking a free win there.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to do anything to this tower, really. Especially, like you said, with Zhao teleporting down. So, LGD, they're looking pretty good. Now it means the supports, especially DDC, can move around the map, and they can try to find something else, perhaps kills. And Jakiro is pretty much the same thing. And DD is only level 4, unfortunately, so he's kind of suffering in the experience front. But all in all, I mean, Yao is going to have a blink and 500 gold. And it's only 9 minutes in. He is doing a fantastic job, and he's not beating Fata that badly, but the gank certainly didn't help. So now they're relying on this Tinker to create space because of the fact that he has his bots, and he's going to have to make a heck of a lot of space because right now it's pretty much all LGD controlling most of the map, and they're just continuing to get farther and farther ahead.
See, what scares me for Mouz in this case is whatever space he can create is in part nullified by the Prophet's presence on the map. I mean, just the fact that the Prophet can like, if he gets very aggressive and trying to push the lanes, he can always just spam Nature's Wrath, and then of course he can always just teleport to a tower to make sure that the treants are there to try and push it back out, as well as take whatever free farm happens to exist. So that makes it tough for him to do that, and in the meantime, LGD, even in the absence of the Prophet, actually has a remarkably good teamfight team to go 4-on-4. And that Tinker is not in that role with that LGD's Prophet is. Like, the Prophet can be absent in LGD between the Alchemist and, you know, we talked about the combo, the Ice Path, and the reverse polarity, the way that Bane can account for a number of heroes, and of course Unstable Concoction, Acid Spray once he starts getting points into that. LGD can afford to just tell the Prophet to go be where Tinker is. Don't worry, we'll go take 4-on-4 fights, because it is essential for Mouz to have the Tinker, not the case with the Prophet.
Yeah, I actually think that's a really, really good point because
Dire's middle tower
4-on-4 with an RP versus like a team with 2 stuns, I suppose, but of course the Visage damage is going to be supplementing that as well. It just doesn't really seem that scary.
Yep.
Like, Mouz don't have anything that's going to be just like, oh man, LGD really have to look out for this. The only thing they have going for them really is the fact that the Tinker has gotten free farm. And yeah, they did a huge Ancient stack as well, so he's going to be getting a heck of a lot more money. And this is pretty much the epitome of all your eggs in one basket. I mean, he just got bots, and now he's going to be back up to 1,500 gold because of that Ancient stack. And Black can't really get anything. I mean, the guy's got 26 CS at 11 minutes. How often do we see Black at this low of a creep score? So it's just more of the perpetuation of the idea that LGD are really just controlling everything. It's going to be a Shadow Blade probably on Sylar as well. He's got 3,000 gold if he wants to buy it. But I guess he didn't, so maybe he's going to go for Battle Fury instead.
Koikva beginning to bounce around the map a little bit. Both teams really just kind of settling into things. Those initial 4 kills came in a flurry, and since then, LGD and Mouz both have kind of settled out. We can see Magnus with his arc boots up now. There's his blink dagger as well. So Yao equipped to fight. And this is, you know, that's kind of my big question is, LGD just has the ability to set the tone of the game right now. If they want, they could just try to set the tone in small skirmishes and just free the map up for the Alchemist, or they could just go RP Fade, that works too. Here comes DDC to help out. Yeah, I guess that works. And the Courier actually took a shot or two. What did he get? Managed to get Brain Sap. So, nonetheless, LGD getting a nice kill. And did that happen? Yeah, that happened before the mech was complete. So that sets him back a smidgen, but makes it a 5-0 game now.
Oh, that is such a bummer for Fata. He's like, oh, hey, the mag has a blink, guys, just so you know. Because that was the first time that Yao was shown basically on the map. He just blinked right across the river, didn't even care about getting like a huge team fight RP. He's like, nope, I'm just going to get a for sure kill because we're already ahead. And I don't really have to wait for perfect timing on my ultimate to make something good happen for my team. So LGD continuing to force a little bit of an advantage. The Tinker, though, he is monstrously farmed,
Oh, yeah.
given this point in the game. I mean, it's 12 minutes in. He can actually buy his Blink soon, or he can go Force Staff, whatever his choice decides to be. I think for this game, Force might be a little bit better, but Blink is safer to farm with. That's pretty much the difference, because with a Blink Dagger, you can just blink into the trees, but with a Force Staff, you can get away if you get initiated on.
Right. Taking a look at LGD, they're right together, the Tinker and the Alchemist. Alchemist now maxed out Greevil's Greed. And, you know, this puts a weird kind of pressure on Mouz. I mean, like you were saying, you know, the idea, you got to create space, and you're dead 100% right. And we went through the problems that creates whenever you have a Prophet who's already in good shape. But you have an Alchemist who has max Greevil's Greed. Like, is a farm game really a game you want to play whenever your biggest late game carry is a Weaver? Not to say Weaver can't carry like hell, but he's not an Alchemist. And he's certainly not an empowered Alchemist from Magnus. We didn't even really talk about that, just how much that can help in terms of his damage coming down the stretch, as it is percentage-based and not flat damage-based. So LGD deciding, yeah, that's fine. We're going to try to take control. Mag trying to get into position here. They have a sentry down, so they know there's no ward or sentries, what have you. Going to try to force some kind of a reaction. Meantime, Koikva teleporting to the Hawk. One of the many cute things you can do with a Beastmaster. And, oh my goodness, this could be so bad if they get grouped up. Synderen and Fada right on top of each other. They've even got... no, never mind. Even got... but yeah, 3 heroes up on the ridgeline. And they're right there together. Let's see if they want to go for it. Yao, still not spotted. Still has his invis rune up. It looks like they are going to go ahead and back off.
It's okay to play a little bit safe right now if you're LGD. What? Oh, that was a whiff.
Yeah, that's called an air
Wow,
ball.
They actually thought he hit him.
Dire's bottom tower is under
And
attack.
Siler, little egg on his face, but yeah, that was greedy. That's really the only word for it. Yao plays a good mag. That is weird to see him just take a complete error, you know, complete hit it in the blank, you know, miss, just a total and utter miss that time.
I don't know, maybe he thought that the Weaver would be running, like, I guess, towards the tower a little bit, because that was the only justification for blinking in that particular spot. But, I mean, things happen. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. I don't think they're too reliant on having the RP up right this second anyway. The only thing they have to really constantly address is the fact that this Tinker is going to be teleporting everywhere and just being a general nuisance with his March of the Machines and his split push. But Siler, with the Battle Fury done, he's going to start turning into a GPM machine. That's essentially what an Alchemist does once he gets up that item and he's got 4 points into the Greevil's Greed. So the timer has basically started for Mouz. Regardless of how farmed Koikva is, he's not going to stay ahead in net worth over Siler if they both just sit on their side of the map and farm. It's just eventually going to get to a point where the Alchemist is going to be absolutely huge, and there's only going to be one person on the side of Mouz who can deal with him at all, and that's going to be Koikva. So I would imagine he might be going for a Hex after the Blink, and I think that would help them actually try to take team fights. But the thing is, there's not really a whole lot of damage right now, because Black still doesn't have anything. Like, he's got 44 CS.
Net worth-wise, we are beginning to see a separation. Koikva up near the top, but after that, very much in favor of LGD. And at this point, the Battle Fury has been done on Siler for quite a bit. And that farm going to be coming quick, fast, and in a hurry. 0-5, Mouz has yet to break the goose egg. And really, at this point, I feel like all they could do is wait and just hope that they're in the right position whenever LGD tries to take a fight. Because, you know, right now, Zhao 8 actually went with an old-school build. Mechanism
Dire's bottom tower
up
is
on
under
him,
attack.
so he's definitely a hero who wants to get involved sooner rather than later. And in the meantime, Koikva spending his time trying to kill off agents. And I mean, the thing about, you know, a Tinker being played this way is Tinker is an amazing hero and basically can be considered a carry just because of how much he brings to the team once he gets super farmed and has a bottomless mana pool and has every item, every active item in every active slot. But he still needs some help for damage, at least down the stretch. And until Black's able to catch up, they're not really going to have that. Black's sitting on Bassy Treads at 1,400 gold, and tell you what, Black is not messing around. He is quick on that trigger for Shikuji.
He has to be, man. Like, Fiend's Grip alone is enough to kill him, pretty much. Well, not alone, but in that duration, he will die to the follow-up that LGD is going to burning out. So, I'm with you. The damage output for Mouz is just simply not up to snuff right now. The only thing they can hope for is that LGD get really overconfident and decide to like bathe in a double or a triple March of the Machines. That's pretty much how they're going to have to win team fights, at least for a little while. If Black can manage to get something up, then I think the tides could turn a little bit, but it's really tough right now for Mouz. They don't have really any towers down at all. LGD still have every single outer 2 towers standing. Granted, Mouz are only missing 1. The thing is, one team fight is pretty much going to be either a Roshan or a tier 1 being taken away from Mouz. And I think it's much more likely that LGD are going to win the next fight just because they have a Blink RP. Their top lane went amazingly well for them. There's 2,000 gold already up on Sylar after he finishes Battle Fury. I have my worries for Mouz right now. I don't think that playing passive is necessarily the way to go.
And yeah, this kind of comes down to what I was talking about in the draft, is I've seen Mouz run these kind of strategies a number of times, and they do work and can work. But, you know, I even made the point before that whenever you run this kind of a strategy that's meant to be surgical and meant to just pick the enemy team apart and to get you wins by taking fights, that was a nice deny by Zhao 8, by the way. But whenever you run this kind of a lineup and then it falls flat and then you lose a couple of fights early on, you lose map control, there's just nothing you can do because you haven't drafted a lineup that's meant to go 5-on-5 that much. Now we're going to have Yao lifted and roared down, and he managed to steal Shockwave. The Obscure will get him away just in the nick of time. Did use a haste rune to do so as well. And a lot of Mouz people, fellas, were showing up to celebrate his funeral. But nonetheless, you know, that's the problem. Like right now, they're not being surgical. They're basically just sitting on their side of the map trying to find the gold to do things like be active on the map. But in the meantime, Alchemist and Nature's Prophet are doing what those two heroes do, which is building stuff really, really quickly.
They just have more of the map.
Yep.
That's really the problem. And the Tinker is the only one who can reliably go to a lane that feels even a little bit unsafe and actually farm it because of the whole blink into trees thing and spam March, which is why I kind of figured he would go with that item in the first place. But no one else can really do that on the side of Mouz. Thata gets to sit by a tower and spam axes, which really only gets you maybe half of the CS in a lane typically. The other creeps just randomly die to auto attacks. So it's really difficult for them to make anything happen in terms of finding more of the map to farm. And Sylar, he's gonna spot out Black here. I'm actually surprised he didn't just go for the kill. Honestly, the damage that he hits for right now, if he gets a high channel and stable concoction off on Black, he might have just been able to kill him just in the cloud. And yeah, there's a sentry even dropped, so he knows what's up.
Sylar takes it in the face and gonna have unstable concoction stolen. No, he didn't. He actually stole his ulti. Chemical Rage, not the worst thing to steal. Although unstable concoctions would have been better. There's a Nightmare on the Fata down in mid. Koikva's there, spamming out some rockets. He's just about maxed out laser and rockets now. He actually switched gears at one point. He was maxing laser plus March and instead opted to go rockets instead. So he's got 3 into laser now. And Mouz just continuing to play very reactionary. This is probably the most quiet game of Dota we've casted the entire preliminary stage. Only 5 kills in 20 minutes. Both teams playing very, very passively with their game plan revolving around just getting themselves in a good position item-wise. And they are going to go for Roshan now. Now, this is, you know, this is one of those times when Mouz, they have to suspect it at least a little bit. And if they wanted to challenge it, there would be a challenge. I mean, there would be... I don't know that they could. Like, they're going to try to come across the river, it looks like. That's just going to be 3 of them, though. Nope, they're not even going to contest it.
Yeah, they can't. There's actually a Tinker there spamming March, but it's a little bit too late, so Koikva was trying to do something a little bit cheeky there, but not really going to do a whole lot for them. And that's a free Aegis for the Alchemist. They could just take this opportunity to take the tier 1 mid, the tier 1 bottom, and then take away even more of the map from Mouz. And this isn't necessarily, like you said, a high fight game, like a high kill game, but it is definitely a very methodical game. And it's more like asphyxiation if you're Mouz. You're going to slowly just lose the map over time, and you're going to slowly get farther and farther behind in experience and gold until LGD are going to walk at your front door and have like 3 more items than you, and you just can't do anything about it.
Right. As of right now, really not a whole lot to report. The net worth staying about where it was before. Tinker slightly on top. Worth mentioning the Alchemist is staying right on par. Only a couple hundred gold behind. After him, the Prophet, right behind him. Magnus, so 3 of the top 4 in terms of net worth, all belonging to LGD, and not by a slim margin either. You can see Mouz beginning to realize they got to do something. As you had said, it's either this or either try to accomplish a goal somewhere or choke to death. And in the meantime, Zhao 8 continues to add to his inventory. Now has the ultimate orb on his way to a Scythe of Ice. Went with a mechanism medallion build, so a very utility-oriented Nature's Prophet build. Been a long time since I've seen a Nature's Prophet of 22 minutes with this much gold having been amassed and not have a Shadow Blade.
Yeah, and Black just dies solo to the Alchemist. And that's what happens when you have a Shadow Blade and a level 3 Unstable Concoction coming out of invisibility with a spray down. That's why I was kind of surprised they didn't do it the first time, because people kind of underestimate the damage output of an Alchemist. Even if he just has a Shadow Blade, you can actually solo kill a lot of heroes because the stun duration is so long. Like, even at level 3, it's over a 3-second stun if you get the max channels, so...
Didn't see what Rubik stole. Looks like Sylar gonna just rush in, get roared out immediately. Fatal with great reaction time. They get the Aegis for free. And LGD looks like they're going to abandon him to the Wolves. There's going to be the telekinesis. He's going to take some damage. Zhao 8's there. Oh, the RP just went off and caught two. They followed up and the skewer. And LGD looked like they were going to abandon him. Instead, just repositioning and looking for a better angle. Fatal will make it away because of a haste rune. Black, though, doing what he can. Zhao 8 going to be forced out. And LGD will retreat. So they do end up getting one, but it cost them two to do so. And Mouz finally getting on the board, make it 2-8. They actually got two there.
Yeah, it's about time.
Yeah.
that's kind of how I feel about those kills. And Sylar just walking into the wrong part of the woods. I'm not even sure why he would be there necessarily, because if you're up against a Blink Mag and you're Mouz, why would you stand that close to the tower anyway? But we're going to see TPs all over the place here mid.
And here we go. Reactions in. Ice Path off the mark. Zhao 8 will get a Sprout off onto Synderen, though. And Synderen most likely heading back the hard way. Stole Shockwave to do a bit of damage. Brain Sap finishes him off. Alchemist will be respawning momentarily. Koikva has a small trust fund going. He's got about 4,000 gold in the bank. And we're beginning to see him grow a bit. But at the same time, again, you've got a Hyperstone up on the Alchemist now. He's not going to be terribly... He already has that Shadow Blade, as you had mentioned, so... Battle Fury Shadow Blade, plus a Hyperstone, Scythe of Ice now done on Tinker. And, you know, it's so, you know, even that Scythe of Ice, what target do you Scythe is the hard part, especially knowing how big they're getting. I thought, with Magnus now getting a BKB up, I actually think that's the much bigger item.
Yeah, BKB is always going to be pretty darn big. The thing is, right now, the only person who has anything on the side of Mouz is the Tinker. And that's going to be the story that we have to keep coming back to, because normally in this situation, Black would be right up there with Quakeva in terms of overall farm. He'd have like a Lincoln's, he might even have an MKB or a Desolator, or, you know, anything to contribute in terms of right-click damage. But the fact of the matter is he doesn't. But they're going to try to go on Sylar here.
Sylar should be bursted down and will be, as Synderen tosses out the old Fade Bolt. And Mouz showing signs of life at the very least. We actually see Zhao 8 getting some bonus gold off the board. But taking a look at the gold graph, just realized we haven't really looked at this in a while. I guess it just felt obvious it would look like this. You know, about 7,500 in favor of LGD. The experience sitting at about 10K. And, you know, Mouz, you know, I want to see what they can do with this line, because I know that they excel at it. But I think LGD is just doing too good of a job of limiting them. I mean, and not to say LGD hasn't made some mistakes. There have been some goofy moments, like you said, Sylar deciding to just go strolling behind the tier 1 that his team was threatening at the moment and was sure to have provoked a mass reaction. But at the same time, the majority of this game, they've just played it out well. There will be a tier 1 dropping out of Mouz. That'll be the second tower of the game, or third tower of the game, excuse me, they managed to claim. And Mouz is actually, if there's anything you can say about them, they're now beginning to take towers and not lose any. They are still sitting on all all but one tier 1.
Yeah, anytime you can get away with something like that, especially a safe lane tier 1, that's really surprising to me, actually. That LGD didn't just try to defend that. Even though they did lose Sylar right before that, it still makes sense to try to defend it, because it's such an important tower to maintain control of the map, because as we've often seen with tier 1 dead in the middle lane and then tier 1 in your safe lane dead, the jungle is very, very easy to invade, as we can see that Mouz is actually already in there. and they're trying to find something, but LGD is pretty much doing the same thing. It looks like they're preparing for a smoke here. DDC does have one if they want to try to go and make something happen, but Roshan's going to be up in about 3.5, 4 minutes, give or take, so they might just wait it out for then instead. Because when you force the fight right before Roshan and you know you're going to have an advantage, then there's a good chance that you can just get the Rosh straight afterwards. And I'm not sure if we brought it up, but there is also a Hex actually fully completed on this Prophet, which is a pretty darn big deal.
Hex up, absolutely. And Beacon Sphere actually just finished on black, so his survivability is going up. And, you know, I actually am beginning to shift towards the idea that LGD is the one who maybe needs to be feeling pressure to get something done here. They have excellent team fight, and they, other than a whiffed RP or two, and well, one landed RP and one whiff, they really haven't done a lot to make use of it. Now they are going to go ahead and smoke up. But I feel like they could group as 5 and just try to take on Mouz, and so long as they were sly about it, like smoked as 5, hang on. We're going to have Faithos spotted out here in mid. Now they're going to come give the old end around. Here come the creeps in the Necro Book. Scythe of Ice on Cinderin. No follow-up. Ice Path barely misses. And I heard a BKB go off. That's going to be Yao. He's looking for a target. And must have fat fingered it. It's a pretty sloppy play here out of LGD.
Structures are fortified.
And in the meantime, Black just continuing to do work. This tower being protected by March of the Machines. But yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. They need to do that. They need to come in at angles, and even if they only get a two-man RP, that could still serve the purpose so long as they get the jump. But that time just whiffed on everything. The Alchemist, the good news though, the Alchemist has completed his assault duress.
Yeah, this is pretty much going to be a dead tier 1. I don't really think the Mouse can possibly defend this. Oh, Cinderin.
Cinderin caught out in the Sprout. Xiaowei catching him at the angle.
Radiant's middle tower has
And now let's see if they want to continue to push. They very easily could, assuming Koikfa is likely to TP in though. Looks like that will make them hesitate. Koikfa knows that they need damage. He's now built a Dagon. So I don't mind that at all, but it just goes to show you, like a Dagon coming out this quickly, you know, just right after Scythe of Ice. Yeah, that's him recognizing that his team needs damage desperately, and he's the only one really equipped to give it to them.
Yeah, that's kind of what happens when you're in this position, at least. I don't know, man. Mouz just can't seem to get a foothold anywhere. Like, no matter what they do, they can't defend a tier 1, they can't push. They're trying to split push, but like you were mentioning before, Xiaowei being able to split push too kind of puts a little bit of a damper on what Koikfa can do. And Koikfa's being forced to go for the Dagon build because he wants to have enough burst to actually take somebody out. And since the only person on the side of LGD who has a BKB is Yao, it's actually still fairly viable. He can maybe look to burst somebody like the Jakiro or the Bane or maybe even Sylar, just because with the Alchemist Ultimate on, he has a little bit over 2,000 health, but it's manageable because Laser Rocket, Dagon, and then you have like a Beastmaster Roar. They can kill him. He's just very, very tanky at this point in the game. So LGD clearly still having an advantage here, but they're not really building that fast on it. It's kind of just staying consistent for the last 5-10 minutes or so. So I think the next team fight, especially considering Roshan's about to spawn, is going to be pretty huge for either team.
Dire's bottom tower is under attack.
Sylar with 1,800 gold in the bank now. We're going to see the Necro Book 3 completed by the Beastmaster now, which, given all the AoE-centric shtiff LGD has going on, really like that pickup quite a bit. And like I honestly, I feel like as much I totally agree with you about Mouz not being able to get a foothold, but I still have this, like, it wasn't like it earlier, but I still have this feeling that LGD is just kind of running around doing stuff. Like, there's not a whole lot of deliberate motion to it. And I feel like it's opening the door up for Mouz a little bit because Koikfa is going to be a beast. Like, he's already got a Scythe up, he's got a Dagon now. And LGD taking a Roshan here would certainly be nice. Sylar actually Scythe of Ice. And trying to be cheeky. Let's see if they want to come in and challenge this. The Rosh will drop soon. There's the roar, and the Visage actually got it. Denied though? He denied it! Visage denied it with the Visage Familiars. What a play. Well played. Coming out from Mouse Sports. Now they're going to try to turn it around. And Xiaowei will be not quite cleaned up by the Rockets. Now he will be, because the Rockets don't stop whenever you're Koikfa. Remember what I was saying about letting Koikfa get a little big? Shows up, gets a double kill. And he actually just upgraded his Dagon twice. Now they're going to spot out Sylar, who blew himself up. Siler going to be nightmared. Yao had to use the BKB. Now Koikfa's back in. Daggett again. RP locks Koikfa down. There will be a skewer to bring him back. But what do they have to hurt him? Everything's gone. Xiao 8 finally comes in. There's a buyback coming out of the Alchemist for that. But LGD, again, like, just has this lackadaisical feeling, and I think we just saw it in that fight. It was well played by Mouz, but it was also very sloppily handled by LGD from start to finish.
Yeah, and they're going to lose their tier 2 as well for that. That denial on the Aegis from the Familiars was absolutely sick, because if Siler had an Aegis for that fight, it would have been completely different. They wouldn't have been able to just bully them around, and that was really the problem, is the fact that because there was so much March inside of the pit, they had already used the mech, they pretty much went on full retreat as soon as they realized that they weren't going to get the Aegis. The high ground roar coming out from Fanta as well, like everything that you could have possibly wanted to make sure that he didn't get it pretty much happened.
Yep.
And that's not a fight that I think you could replicate very easily if you're Mouz, so I would be very thankful that it kind of ended up that way. And the sad part about it is, even though they did very, very well and Koikfa ends up getting a triple kill, he also dies at the very end, and they didn't really get a huge chunk of anything outside of just denying the Roshan from LGD.
Black, at the very least, now finally has some damage. His Desolator just freshly completed. And yeah, like, I'm still just dumbfounded at not just LGD's handling of that battle. I mean, the Alchemist is farming like hell. He's got 2,800 gold, and I feel like he's probably got something on the way to him. Nope, never mind. But he's got 2,800 gold. He's getting big. That's all well and good. But we just saw right there the way that a well-played Tinker can take a fight over, and Koikfa plays a hell of a Tinker. Said it as soon as we saw the pick. He's just good at the hero. Doesn't play him as much, for the most part, as a Prophet or a Lone Druid. Those are two of his other specialty heroes. But, like, this team fight potential, it just hasn't been seen. Yao, to be honest, has not played a good Magnus this game. I just have not felt the influence of a well-played Magnus, and that's part his fault, but also part the way that they're playing it. They're playing so defensive when they have such an unbelievably transparent team fight advantage, but they've now waited so long that the damage is being shored up, and they're going to have a lot of ways to blow up a single target, both magic and physical.
Yeah, I think they are playing it a little bit too passive. But the thing about playing Mag against a Rubik is, even with the BKB, you always run the risk of getting your RP stolen. And when that happens, you don't really have a whole lot you can do in terms of, like, just pure initiation. It makes you feel so scared to just go in and throw the RP, because if he steals it and he gets a good one, then you're stuck inside a March of the Machines and you're RP'd, and you could easily get the fight turned on you. So I understand why LGD is playing it passive, but at some point, something's kind of got to give.
Yep.
Because eventually, I mean, this Tinker is going to have a Dagon 5 soon, and then we're talking about maybe an E-Blade after that. That burst damage is so high that they can pretty much burst anyone on the side of LGD at that point, which is still pretty scary. And a lot of people think that just a Weaver is like a single core team, but a Tinker is considered a core as well, just because of how much farm he actually does get. So, I was going to say, I'm not sure about that TP, but it looks like the boar actually got Midas when that was happening. And Siler is also something to keep in mind here too, is the more time that goes on, he's actually caught up in terms of overall CS, comparative to what the Tinker has. And this is Greevil's Greed CS, so his net worth is actually finally surpassed Koikfa's.
Still right on top of each other, but yeah, about 1,000 gold heading that way. Now LGD is going to smoke, look to find a target. But I don't know, like, this, they smoke up, they're going to take a very long path here. They're going to try to just bait some reaction out of Mouz. And I stick by what I said. It's like, I'm not sure why they're trying to bait anything. This should be an opportunity for them to be setting the pace and taking fights on their terms instead of trying to force Mouz to come to them. Nonetheless, we're 36 minutes in, a game that honestly I did not think was going to go much past 30 minutes at one point. Now we're going to see Fata finally caught out. Yao's going to skewer him back into the ice path. So they do find that one target that they were looking for. And
he just brain sapped the Necronomicon and died.
So LGD losing Bane to the Necronomicon creep as the brain sap from the Bane mistimed and misplaced. Koikfa in position now to defend this tower. Siler eating a lot of damage now. A very nice skewer brings Poss back. There's going to be the Sprout to follow it. Cleans up, and now the reaction comes out of Mouz. The buyback came from the Beastmaster. Now the telekinesis to bring Siler back. They're going to try to re-engage it. Nice. No, actually, RP only got one. Here comes Koikfa. Koikfa just by himself with no one to tank for him. And LGD's lineup finally showing itself. Yao spending the RP on just one target, but it was one target they needed to bring down the Beastmaster after buyback, and they're not done. Wow. That was a downtown unstable concoction, and Koikfa going to end up dead because of it. And this is what I was talking about. Yeah, they got Fate at once, but they didn't need to worry about pick and push, just take a fight. Showing that when they're all together, it's a very potent composition they have. And there we go, finally bring down the tower from the backdoor protection. And now without, Koikfa's going to be forced to buy back. But even with him, like now that they're on the high ground, cracking the high ground's the hard part. Koikfa can spam them down, but they've got Chemical Rage to help keep them alive. And now they're going to re-engage Siler. Forced staff to the high ground by his good buddy DD. And they will finally break it up. So 8-16 now, LGD doubling up. Hang on. Seeing another side device used. Koikfa gets way out in front of himself. Telekinesis not enough to save him as the Ice Path caught him. There's a roar coming from Feta, though. Siler will be surviving long enough to run. Yep, there's the force staff. Knew there was going to be one coming off cooldown soon enough. Ice Path locks them out. Well placed, but now stolen by Rubik and caught him in the choke point. Big time disable and a big time turnaround. They lost Koikfa again, unfortunately, but picking off a couple in return and sending LGD fleeing back to their side of the map. 10-17 as the dust settles.
It was nice to be able to pick off the two supports there, but I honestly feel like Koikfa is worth more, considering he died twice. I mean, he died, bought back, died again. That is a tremendous amount of gold that he just lost there, and I believe he threw his bottle on the ground unless the courier picked it up, but nope, it didn't. So yeah, it's kind of rough for him right now. He had such a good start and a very, very good mid game, but it's starting to get to that point where he needs Black to be in the fights and actually back him up, and luckily for him, Black is actually starting to get some farm. He's got the Desolator, the Lincolns, and he's working his way towards the MKB. So his damage output is getting to a respectable point and where they can rely on him to maybe even carry the game, which is good because that's what he's supposed to do. But LGD are still looking pretty good. Refresher on Yao, that's insane. Like that means that he doesn't have to worry so much anymore about maybe it getting stolen because he can just RP twice in a row. And if he does end up catching the Rubik, then there's not really much that anyone else on the side of Mouz can do about it. You can get roared, but that's about it. So everything's still going pretty well for LGD, and Siler even goes for a Manta. And the thing about Manta on Alchemist is it actually does receive some benefit from the Chemical Rage, just in terms of base attack time, so the images are actually quite strong.
He's actually hitting quite hard with Empower on, and this is where that's going to become a factor, not having BKB, and you know, the choice not to pick up a BKB despite the fact that it would mitigate the Dagon spam very much, I'm sure, having something to do with Empower, because Empower purged off by Magic Community, and instead wanting to focus on the bonus base damage. But DD taking a bit of damage and making it back to safety. But yeah, I mean, at this point, the inventories are getting full. MKB done on Zhao 8, so his damage output is quite high, quite effective. DD has about everything he's ever going to need. The Mag with the Refresher and the BKB, as you said. Bane, even he has a force staff. News. Whenever I saw Siler running away that time, knew between the two of them, one would have a force staff off cooldown soon enough. Just because that's how these fights have gone. They've just been so effective in their usages of it. But yeah, especially when you come down to Siler, the guy is just gigantic. He has 25 armor. He has a heart, 3,600 health, a Shadow Blade, and a Manta. He is just a monster. Now they're going to go to town. Just look at the racks melt. Now they're going to try to engage, stunning him out with the Visage Familiars. Didn't see what he got. Chemical Rage again. So that was just basically a free racks. Run in, kill a racks, run out.
Well, I mean, what can they do, really? Siler is just unbelievably tanky at this point. Even with the Weaver finally starting to get some damage items, it's just not enough. It's not enough damage. They just can't do it. He's been so far behind for so long that even though it's Black, even though he's been able to effectively utilize the map, being behind for this long, it's not going to be enough against a team who knows how to play when they're ahead. And even though LGD might have played too passive, and hold on, Zhao 8, not blame.
And we're going to see...
Or bottom, rather.
There we go. You confused me, Koikfa. Caught out with the Fiend's Grip. And cleaned up. That's a gigantic kill. And we did see Zhao 8 end up dead, so trading 1 for 1. Koikfa does not have buyback there. No one on the map but the Alchemist has buyback, and that's why that's such a big deal. The Prophet can get to this Rosh pit. Not that he's even... This look at Siler going to work on Roshan. Don't even need the treants to tank it. Zhao 8 was there, but hey, what the hell? But yeah, Koikfa dropping there. Very much a big deal. Lacking the buyback to come and allow his team to contest that. And now just up to LGD to try and close this game out. Have yet to see Yao show off the refresher. But beginning to feel like Mouz is on their last legs. The gold graph kind of tells us that. We're talking about nearly 20,000 gold moving in the favor of LGD. And the push power of Siler has just gone through the roof. When he rages out, he is just knocking things over. Just knocking them over.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we also see Black's solo kill on Zhao 8, and that was after he bought back, so they might actually be able to defend this.
They glyph it out. We're going to find out soon enough. Siler will go ahead and back off for the moment. Just leave his illusions there to work on the tower. They actually haven't down the health, just the illusions. They can't even get them down, finally. They killed off, and Siler looks like he's just got to pull back at least for a little while, along with his team. Zhao 8 back up in 60 seconds, does not have buyback. And yeah, they're going to wait for the full 5. Just play it out patiently.
Yeah, I don't blame them for that. Just regrouping is fine. They have the refresher for this push anyway, so all it's really going to take is Chemical Rage, Manta, hit the tower. If Mouz want to try to engage, they're going to have a very, very sad time, I think.
Black, again, finally getting the damage he needs. He's got 1,500 gold. Now, this is where buybacks are going to start to matter a lot, especially with 2 global presence heroes like a Tinker and a Nature's Prophet. Prophet, as mentioned, 4 minutes until he has one. Weaver needs 500 gold to have a buyback. Mouz moving into position. Siler there to just clean house on all the various creeps hanging out. He will be telekinesis and caught out. He's going to Manta out of it, though. Now, Post and Black on the high ground. Siler's going to try to pursue him out. Thought better of it. Will turn around and just eat the unstable concoction on his own. Mouz unable to get anything done during the downtime of the Prophet, so with Zhao 8 back up, he's got 4,400 gold, mind you, so he's certainly going to be able to buy some big items soon enough. Question is, what's he going to grab? Is he? I'll tell you something I wouldn't mind seeing him grab at all. Would be an Orchid. One more way to deal with the Weaver. One more way to deal with the Tinker.
Yeah, it wouldn't necessarily be a horrible choice, but also remember that there is a Linken's on Black, so it's something that you have to consider is what spell you want to use to actually eat the Linken's before you want to try to actually focus them down. Or I suppose you could just RP him too, if you're Yao. You don't have to worry about Linken's if you can just make everybody stunned forever because you have a refresher and pretty much full inventory. But here comes the push from LGD. Going to be quite hard to stop.
Siler leading with his face. There's going to be a side device, 4 stabbed to the low ground by DDC. Keeping his buddy safe, and his regen is kind of stupid. He's regenerating 150 HP a second when he's raged and just using the heart. And these poor treants, or these poor slugs, never stood a chance. And they're just gonna probably commit to this. The fact that Koikfa can spam like this is one of the few things they have going for them to try and keep this tower up. But even that's gonna be a little bit of wishful thinking at this point against Siler's HP regen. Just insane. There's the Linken's pop. Didn't see what he used. But they are going to rush it down. Manta back up, going to work. There's an RP that caught 2. He's going to be able to skewer him back. And one more time. Nope, doesn't even need it. Used the refresher, didn't even cast it a second time. Best RP of the game. For Yao, for sure. Best one he's had. He's got it back up and ready to roll whenever they want it. They're going to come out and try to do something about it. Black is enfeebled. There's the Linken's popped. And now he's going to be nightmared. Did up, he actually stole Nightmare. Here comes the BKB again, and the roar gonna be on Siler. The RP though, there's the best one he's had all game. And that'll be that. As Siler helps clean house with the double kill. Those are buybacks coming out across the board now. Koikfa gonna come back out, try to maintain this. Black is hitting very hard. Ice Path gonna lock him down. No, Yell's right there with him. Linken's popped again. He time lapses to get away. Siler still up and running. Trying to force his way deep into this base. Yao, though, now scythed out and eating a lot of damage with the dagger that popped the Aegis. But 2 swipes from Siler, more than enough to cleave down the Rubik. Ice Path going to be off the mark. Black not with a lot of HP. Siler going to be 4 staffed away again. He's going to Manta, ends up blowing himself up with the unstable concoction. Black making a run for the well. In the meantime, the racks do drop. Valiant effort, I would say, by Mouz. They actually made much more of a fight from that than I thought they would. Did take all their buybacks to do it, but nonetheless, LGD ready to put a cherry on it. Going to work on nothing but the Ancient. Scythe of Ice on Sylar again. 1 tier 4 has dropped already. Chemical Rage off cooldown, and this will be that. They don't have the glyph, but they do have a big pissed off purple dude. Now they're going to re-engage onto the heroes. What happened to Pause? Pause is a smear, and Black is now a smear. Here comes Koikva, trying to get back into this. Oh, the skewer off the mark after the Nightmare. Ice Path to follow it up. Koikva's gone. GG. Mouz coming down the stretch there. Thought they had. I honestly thought they were just going to get run over. But LGD able to, of course, to notch a glorious victory as we see all of our fine viewers on the left being rewarded for witnessing the glorious victory. Mouz, though, did make a good fight of it, but in the end, LGD keeps their hopes for the upper bracket alive, splitting this series 1-1.
I was really impressed the way that LGD played this. I think they were a little bit gun-shy in the mid-game because they were really worried about the Rubik and the Spellsteal and Yao being able to RP, but if you watched the beginning of the fight when they were pushing the tier 3 mid, he waited until he saw Cinder and Spellsteal and then immediately went into RP because it's on cooldown, obviously he can't take it straight away, and they ended up getting a couple of kills for it. And by the way, Bane had 3 gems. Like, just, I mean, that's a bit redundant, but hey man, whatever works, works. LGD obviously played this much better than they did the first one. I feel as though the tri-lane that Mouz put together on paper, yeah, you have 3 ranged heroes, you can harass the Alchemist, but the problem with that is that 2 of the 3 heroes in your tri-lane are so squishy that they can just die from one combo.
Right.
There's not really much you can do about it because the only stun is Rubik. So I feel as though maybe they were a little bit outlaned. And of course, the Nature's Prophet versus the Tinker. Koikva did a really good job of that matchup, even though technically I'd say it's a little bit more even because treants are just so annoying for ranged heroes in general, especially in the side lane. So regardless, LGD take this one. I wouldn't say it was a complete stomp, but I don't think they were ever really in danger of losing either.
Right. Now, gun shy is the word that I would use, definitely, and that was my big worry. And we saw for a moment there, Mouz had this opportunity where if they engaged the right way and they were able to just engage on their terms, get a good roar off, allow Koikva to get into a good position. We saw him just chew through the team of LGD, but in the end, what really kicked in was Agreevil's greed, and it got to the point that the Alchemist just was not going to be touched. He had way too much health. No amount of rocket spam or Dagon 5 was going to change that, and LGD, again, this was one of the most important games they have played so far, trying to keep their chances for a top seeding alive. They are now improved again to 5-5, of course, splitting the series and dropping game 1 to Mouz. And, yeah, best of luck to him. Mouz, though, of course, got 1 win, a little bit of pride, nothing wrong with that. But as mentioned previously, not really in the running for a chance for a top seed anymore. So that's our 3rd series of the day behind us, ladies and gentlemen. Liquid versus Alliance, an all-Western matchup. Haven't had too many of these over these 2 days of preliminaries. Going to be coming your way sometime soon, would imagine. Probably somewhere between 10-15 minutes. That's roughly been the downtime most of the time. Then we'll be rounding out the evening with LGD versus Zenith and putting the cherry on it with Liquid versus LGD International. So make sure you stick around. I'm AC, that's Draskell. Our next series, once again, Team Liquid taking on Alliance, coming up in just a few minutes. Stick with us. We'll be right back.